So, what makes you a good player? Is it how much money you dump into your deck? Is it how many wins you have at your local store? Is it how many regional tops you have, or how many YCS tops you have, or is it basically, how many events you've played in, or how many rulings you know? What makes you a good player? Before I go on with this session, I want you to leave your comments down below about what you think. What constitutes you being a very good Yu-Gi-Oh player? Or hell, not even a very good player, a good player. Because, in all honesty, a very good player and a good player are very different. See what I did there? This is going to be my personal opinion, at least for the first session. This is going to be a multi-session thing. This is not something you can really do in one thing, because we do have time constraints on YouTube. We do have things to slow us down, and we do have other factors to consider. Personally, it is not your deck. It is not how much money you put into it. It's the amount of time. If your deck has any relation to how good of a player you are, it's the amount of time and effort you've put into it. I know people that will literally spend $1,000 on a deck after they lose to it just because they think, well, I can't beat this, and if you can't beat them, you gotta buy them, so let's buy them. Here's my money, sir. And then I will know people who will take a deck, one they've been playing since it came out, carry it, take it all the way along to the current, where we are currently in the meta, and still play it, and actually do well with it. All because they've spent time learning how to counter the meta, how to play this deck, how this deck works, how it goes off, how it wins, and how to make it win faster. An example would be, I have a friend who did this to some degree with Dragoonides. He's been playing it literally since I met him when the deck came out. Still playing them today. In fact, he's still trying to innovate them as much as he can. He's actually trying tour guides now. Not a new idea, but at the same time, it's something new he wants to try. I have another friend who I will deck profile eventually. You'll see him on this channel quite often, who did the same thing with Six Samurais. He was playing them since they came out. Stopped playing them before Shien appeared because, well, they weren't money as much then, if I remember. And when Shien came out, they were too much money for him to play because he couldn't afford everything. And then he actually just went to his first regional last month and went undefeated with his Six Samurai build in a format where Six Samurais only have maybe 1 or 2 appearances, and one of them was in Mexico with a false ruling, because we all know Naturia Beast and Six Samurai Shien cannot stop Hornet, despite what they say in Tijuana, or Guadalajara, or Jamaica, or Kokomo. We all know the truth. And that's me trying to be funny. I'm sorry, I don't have a good sense of humor. Humor. So, in that aspect, it's not the amount of money. It's the time. If you see something through the format, you might have an idea of how to play a deck. You can't just pick up something offhand and expect to win every game with it. I mean, you can if you sack hard enough, and there are people who do that, but for the most part, you aren't supposed to do that. You are supposed to open a bad hand. You do have to play your way out of it. And if you can't do that with a deck, you might not be a good player. Sign number 1. It's not the amount of times you've taught the local. I don't care who you are or what you play. You can take anything to a local and top. In a format where Dino Rabbit's king, you can take agents as bad as they are right now, take them to a local and get a win. It depends upon who you play, what they're playing, etc., etc. It's a local. It's so small scale that you're supposed to be able to play those rogue tier 3 decks and win. You find a lot of people will play the tier 1 decks because they're like, well, you know, free credit. And I can't even say that's a derpy thing because we all do that. We like free things. But people who still have fun will play the random decks. That's why Chaos Dragons were big. Believe it or not, a lot of people didn't play Chaos Dragons just because they were good. It's more or less because they were actually fun to play. Now, while opening Future Fusion every game can be a little bit sacky, need I say, it's still a fun deck. If you don't, you can still do goofy plays and hit goofy combos, etc. It's like any other deck. So it's not the amount of locals you've won. Regionals are a different story. They're more high scale. That could help you show that you're a consistently good player and that you know how to play. It can tell you if you can play out of a situation. The key thing is you have to be able to play out of situations. You can't just sack every time. You can't just go rescue rabbit, they have no failure, special logia somehow, and the next turn go tour guide. No, you have to open the vanillas. That's going to be my little expression. You have to open the vanillas and be able to win with some vanilla to win. You got to make it a little bit of a Neapolitan sandwich. You have the vanilla where it's just it was good at some point in time. Then you have the chocolate, which is just so dark because it's so dirty because you sack. And then you have the strawberry, which, hell if I know, strawberries are strawberries. You have to be able to play out of things. YCSs, you can do great at a YCS, and you might be a good player. I can't say I've never been to a YCS, so that's just my opinion. Other than that, though, I think that's going to be everything for this session. I do want to go more in depth with this, so this is going to be part 1 of probably, I would say, at least a 5-part series. But like I said, leave comments down below. I want you to leave me content or comments basically saying, this is what I want you to discuss. I want your input as to why this is or this isn't making you a good player. You can counter my arguments if you want, but for the most part, I want your opinion about what makes a player good. Is it playing out? Is it the money, etc., etc.? Whatever it is that comes to that little head of yours or that big head of yours. If you're like me, you're a giant, you got a big head. Whatever comes in there, leave it down below. Anyway, guys, this is BLS 4Game signing off for the night. Deuces.